Real-life example. Here's where we do a real-life example. I will show you this program in action. We have a problem to solve. This topic often comes up in discussions. I've heard it time and time again. Somebody says we should pray always and always follow the commandments of Christ, always seek the Spirit, in everything we do. But other people will say no, it's a wicked and slothful servant that has to be commanded in all things. And so what should we do? Which of these is right, or is neither of them right? Let's find out by looking at scriptures. This is an example in the help file and it's under the title Real Life Example. I'm going to try to follow along here with the help file. Okay, we know there's a passage in the Doctrine and Covenants that says something like it is a wicked and slothful servant that has to be commanded in all things. So it's important to get the precise language to find out exactly what the Lord is talking about. We can find out by looking at the exact wording of the scripture, and we know it's in the Doctrine and Covenants, but exactly where is it? And what does it say? This is an example. There are many ways to approach this. Let's type in a search phrase commanded in all things. But it also talks about slothful servant, so let's add slothful servant to the search. Now we're not looking for an exact phrase because we don't know exactly what the wording is. Could be a wicked and slothful servant? Or it could be something like that servant is slothful or is not meet that, I should command in all things? There are a lot of different ways of expressing this. We know for a general idea these are the words, and so we're not looking for an exact phrase. We're just looking for all of these words appearing somewhere in a scripture passage. And here we come up with quite a few. Now we have found 17 items, but we know that the result that we're looking for is in the Doctrine and Covenants. So, we put D and C, or DC, in our filter. And we come up with some passages here. Now, looking over these passages, we've only got 6 to look for. We probably are kind of familiar with that passage, and we find it down here D and C. 58-6. For behold, it is not meet that I should command in all things. So this is the passage we're looking for. How about refining this a little bit? How about going to section 58 and finding this entire passage? So let's go clear our search filter, do a search for D and C 58. Don't forget the quote marks. Here's the entire section D and C 58. Now, the word we were looking for was slothful. So add that word to the filter and we get 2 verses. Verse 26, Behold, it is not meet that I should command in all things. Wherefore he who is compelled in all things the same is a slothful and not a wise servant. Wherefore he receiveth no reward. And the next verse, verse 29, He that doeth not anything until he is commanded and receiveth the commandment was a doubtful heart. And keepeth it with slothfulness. The same is damned. Okay. So that's what we're looking for. So how do we print this out? And this is a little trick you can do first. We'll select these 2 verses by checking them, and then we'll clear our filter to get back to the entire chapter. Okay, you notice that the 2 verses are still selected, 29 and 26. Okay. Now we're going to do a results page from this. Create web page from all. If we did create web page from selected, we just get those 2 verses, but we want the entire chapter. So this is what we get. We get the entire chapter. And verses 26 and 29 are highlighted so we can study those 2 verses in context. Sometimes when we take verses out of context, we'll get the incorrect meaning. So here we can study this easily in context. I also noticed there's a link here, the LDS Scripture Library. Well, first, let's go over this page a little bit. The header at the top tells us when the page was generated. It tells us the search we used. We used the query D and C 58 and the filter was blank, so we could look at all 65 verses. Notice these buttons up here. We can use them to turn off these external links, which is to the LDS Scripture Library. If this were the Bible, we'd have a lot more links. If we want to turn off the highlighting, we can turn that off. Normally, when we search for a word, the word will be highlighted. We can turn that off. And if we had any comments, we could turn those off as well. There are no comments. By the way, did you find the answer to this problem? I found an answer that satisfies me. If you want to read it, go to the help file. So anyway, this is how you do this type of search. End-to-end example. Now, we're going to do an end-to-end example of how to go through a complete search and complete results report and show what happens along the way. We're going to do a very simple example. We're going to go back to our example of the banner and we're going to search for the word banner and we're going to filter it by mountain. Now we see something very interesting here. We see two parallel verses, one from Isaiah and one from Nephi, which are the same verse. Lift up a banner upon the high mountain. This is significant. And it's a good handy way to compare verse by verse through Nephi and Isaiah if we wanted to do that. Okay, we'll see the two verses highlighted. And what we're going to do now is we are going to print this out. We see our two verses. Here is an example where we have a verse from the Bible and a verse from the Book of Mormon. Notice that the Bible has a lot more links. We're going to go over those links with you here in a second. In the browser address bar, you see the name search page and you can see where it's located. It's in your Documents folder under Concordance, Database, Results. You can toggle off these external links using the buttons. You see the words banner and mountain. They are highlighted. We asked for those words up here in our query. We can turn these highlights off. We're going to make a comment here in a minute and then we'll see what the comments look like. Let's look at these external links. Turn that back on here. Okay, there's 4 links if it's a biblical passage. There's a link to Strong's Concordance on Bible Hub. And we have, since Hebrew reads right to left, the passage is reading from right to left and we can look up the different words. Okay, here's the Hebrew script. Here's what the Hebrew word sounds like. It also has what the word mountain is and the word high and okay, banner is Nes. But if you look up ensign, it's also Nes. It's a synonym. We can go through and look at the original meanings of all these Hebrew words. Sometimes this is really interesting, because the Hebrew word is not translated correctly into English. There's another link here, multiple biblical translations. This is also from Bible Hub. And they keep popping up these ads, I don't know what they want. There are many translations of the Bible, some are better than King James. You can make a verse-by-verse comparison. Here is not just a mountain, it's on a bare hilltop or a barren hilltop. Instead of the high and mighty, it's the gates of the nobles. There's a lot of different interpretations of these scriptures and it's often helpful to read these and get a broader understanding of the meaning. You can also do this. Okay, you've got the comparison with the Joseph Smith translation. Here is a website that takes you word by word through the King James and the inspired version of the Bible and takes the entire chapter. And as you can see here, the King James is in red and it's in strike over and the Joseph Smith's inspired version is in green. So you can see this. Let's see. I forgot what verse we were on. We were looking at just verse 2. Okay, that shouldn't be that difficult. This is okay. There are not too many differences here. Some verses of the Bible, Joseph Smith changed quite a bit. And as you go through and look at some of these comparisons, you can see that he focused his attention on certain books of the Bible, but not others. Okay, so that's that. And then we have the LDS Scripture Library, which I'm kind of including just for people's information and just to be complete. And sometimes they have word links here. You can look at my sanctified ones and saints are simultaneously translated and either from either of 2 Hebrew words in the Old Testament, but they don't say what those words are. You go back and you could look, okay, this is good to go back to look at that. Let's see, let's go back to Strong's and the word sanctified ones was in Isaiah 13:3. So let's go to that one. Okay, my mighty ones, my sanctified ones. What does it say here? My sanctified ones. Okay, so that's interesting. Anyway, this is an example of how to get a report of your results. Comments. And now I'm going to show you how to add and edit comments. Let's close a few windows. Go back to the search page and you can make your own comments in the scriptures. And in time you'll build up quite a collection of comments if you do this regularly, and it really helps to exercise your mind and your spirit to ponder each passage in scripture and write down what it means to you. It forces you to think about it. So the way we do a comment is like this: double-click on the comment. And let's just type in some things here. I hope this shows up because I'm recording this off the main program searcher screen, not the editor. So we'll see what happens. The word for banner and ensign are the same word in Hebrew. Now, if you want to add emphasis, you can select the word and you can do a Ctrl-B, or you can click on the B over here on the toolbar. You can also do italic by using Ctrl-I, and you do underline by Ctrl-U. Or you can use these. Let's see, Hebrew. Let's make that a well. Let's not change the font. I think that looks kind of bad. Let's just change the color. Make it bright orange. Okay, so now we can either do a Ctrl-Q or hit quit. And it asks us if we want to save the item. We say yes, okay. It's saved. When we move the mouse away that cell on the grid, the comment will appear. Now I believe we can also do this. We can go back to that comment and copy it this time. We don't want to save it. Then we can paste the same comment into the other cell. And then you mouse your mouse away from that cell, both comments will be visible. Now just to prove to you that these comments got saved in the database, let's clear the search. Clear the filter. We're going to search and clear the results. And then we'll run the previous search again. Okay. I just ran the search. I didn't even check for mountain. I just did a general search. Let's filter that by mountain. So we get the two passages that we commented on, which is what we wanted. This shows that the comment was added into the database. Now here's something else interesting. We've been doing a lot of searches and we've got a history here. We built up. Let's see. We can clear the search filter. We should see the searches which we did just a few minutes ago. They only show up in the history if you generated a web page. If we double-click on the query box, it will put the words from our search in the search text box. We get the results again. If we want to repeat the search that we just ran, we could double-click on banner and mountain. It fills in banner and mountain. We ran the search, but won't print out the results. But, if we did, we would also see the comments that we typed in, bold, italics, underlines, colors and all. You can get your search query back. But you have to actually click both buttons to repeat your search. It doesn't automatically do a search and filter. You have to do that, yourself, because it thinks, maybe you're going to add something else. So it adds the words and waits for you to actually run your query again yourself. And that's how you search, how you do queries, how you generate web pages and look at the history. Now, I'd like to show you a better demo of how to add comments to a verse. I'd also like to show you the copy and paste feature. Then I'd like to show you another feature that will save you time. Editing comments. This time, I'm showing you the full desktop, not just an isolated window. Let's go back to the window, where we searched for banner. You see the two comments that we already entered for Isaiah 13:2 and 2 Nephi 23:2. Let's comment D and C 135-7, where it talks about the banner of liberty. Double-click on the comments cell. The quick edit window pops up. This is a pretty extensive editor. I am just going to hover over the menu bar, just to show you some of the features. Incidentally, you can copy and paste from Word, or any document, or the internet, so if you find a quotation you like, you can copy and paste it here and save it. We'll add some text and show how you add bold, italic, underline, and color. There are many other features to this editor, so it works just like most text editors or word processors. When you are done editing, press Ctrl plus Q, or the Quit button. You are taken back to the main program. You have the choice to save the result or ignore it. If you save it, the text will be inserted into the cell you are editing, but it won't be visible until you click away from that cell. When you select Create Web Page from the Action menu, your comment will appear on the page. You can also toggle the comment on and off. Copy and paste. On the Action menu, there is an option called Copy Selected, which takes any verses you have checked and puts them on the Windows clipboard. There is another option called Copy All, which copies all the verses which are selected and puts them on the Windows clipboard. You can then paste them into a text file, a document you are writing for a speech, or onto social media. I use this feature a lot on Facebook. Somebody is always asking about a verse that they know a few words from, but don't know where it is or what is the exact wording. I have already shown you how to search. You can also immediately share your results with others. Find the chapter. Remember the example about the slothful servant? We found the verses and wanted to see the whole chapter? I added a new feature to the program and used it the other day on social media. I made the comment that Solomon asked the Lord for wisdom. Somebody else thought this was an unusual thing to do. I wanted to show that it wasn't, and that the Lord often asks his servants what is their desire. I wanted to quote from 3 Nephi where the Lord asked the Nephite disciples what was their desire. I couldn't remember where the passage was, but I knew it was in 3 Nephi. I searched on all of 3 Nephi. I also remember that the Lord touched them with his finger, so I added finger to the filter. The verse about touching the disciples came up, so I selected the verse and right-clicked on it. A tiny pop-up menu appeared, Open containing chapter. I clicked the menu, and the program opened up the entire chapter, 3 Nephi 28. Remember, you have to select the verse, that is, click on it, before the right-click menu pops up. The word Exodus occurred. The word EX abbreviation occurs in the verse cell and the book Exodus occurs in the book cell. So you can use either word in the search or the filter. But it's generally best to consult this table. It will help remind you which word to use and where to use it. And if you forget your abbreviations, you can look them up here. But for the most part, you should try to use the abbreviation up here in the search and in the name of the book or the volume down in the filter. And you should try to eliminate the most possibilities in the search before you filter. That's why you do the search first. Search through the database is very quick and you want to return as few results as possible. But you want the results to be good results. You don't want extraneous information. And that's why you have the filter. It's much quicker to filter down through 10 verses than it is to filter a couple of thousand verses in memory. So that's how this works. I think we've pretty much covered everything on the search page. There's more explanations in the help file, which is pretty comprehensive. And I think it's pretty easy to follow. I've tried to write this program so that it's easy to understand. Easy to follow. Hopefully it is. Please leave comments on my blog page at john144.com, and I'll address those and try to make any fixes that I can, to make it easier. I realize that it is confusing. What and how to enter text in the search box versus the filter box. My suggestion would be to just experiment because that's what I have to do. I am still learning this too and I wrote this program. But there's unknown little quirks about searching in the search engine. The database uses something called full text search and the manual has about 20 pages of rules. I tried to simplify the rules through coding and managed to get them down to 1 page. I'm still learning and everybody that uses a database is probably still learning because every person and every search is unique. So just keep trying. You won't break anything. The worst that can happen is if you get no results at all. For example, let's clear the search and just search for nothing. This is what you'll get. Or you might get just an empty grid. Search for foo. Let's see what happens. You won't get any results at all. So that's the worst that can happen. It's a lot like searching the internet with Google or Bing or whatever search engine you use.